So I'm going to start by gluing down the Tyvek all the way out to the edge, I think. And if that proves to be a mistake, I'm pretty sure we can tear it up again. As long as I'm going to go crazy with the glue. We got to get underneath, put more of the crossboards under. Later on, we're going to have a little frame down there in order to put flashing on, so it helps deflect a bunch of the debris and water that comes off the road when we're driving with this thing. Then we start on the floor frame.
Now, is this the wood that we're going to be using for the floor frame?
This is all treated lumber, everything in this pile.
So now I noticed in our order, why is some of it treated and why is some of it not treated?
Well, the everything on the bottom end that's touching the trailer is treated. Basic reasoning for this, I discussed in an earlier video how using Tyvek underneath everything was a slightly questionable decision. I think it's worth it. I decided to go forward, in that direction. Other people may do it differently, but there is a possibility that there's going to be water trapped. It'll get inside the structure, come down to this layer, and then get trapped for a little bit and sit in around the wood. And treated lumber is not that much more expensive, so I'd rather not take the risk. Of having any rot issues, or what I'm saying, because that's pretty much the skeleton of our tiny house is going to be that bottom brace that connects basically the upright frame to the trailer. It's not an area where you want rust.
Yeah.
Or rot. So that's it.
Awesome.
So we've cut most of the cross beams for our floor braces. Haven't done the ones in the middle yet. But we just laid them out dry, and we're doing one last check of all our measurements, and then we're going to start bolting stuff together. And alright, halfway through our, well, maybe not quite halfway, through our floor build. I want to show you guys what I did with this. I built basically the interior frame, single treated 2x4s all the way around. These are 16 inches apart. So when we lay the flooring, it'll divide evenly along the seam. We're not going to do all kinds of fancy cuts. But then, and this is not attached to the frame right now, so it's slid in. It's going to be flush with the edge of the steel when all said and done. But then basically I went around it. I'm going around it again with another layer of 2x4s, because that's going to be kind of the footer for the walls. And frankly, I wanted to absorb some more flex out of the system. I want it to be really strong. I don't want to have any issues come up down the road. And so I'm sure this is probably overkill, but kind of one of the things I learned from my dad was when to have enough humility to not push the envelope and just overbuild the thing, just to be on the safe side. So that's not completed yet, but basically at every joint we've got two sets of 2x4s. We've got screws, 6-inch, 5-inch screws going in this way, going in this way, going in through all three, and going in this way. So it's a pretty dang strong joint. I'm going to do that one down there in just a minute. But it's going very well so far.
we have spent this beautiful Sunday morning securing the floor joist. We just moved over the large piece that goes between the wheels. We still have yet to attach all the boards on the far end, but now we're securing these two large pieces here on the end.
This is what we got done yesterday. Not quite as much progress as I'd hoped, but we got the base frame all cut, all screwed, all put together. It's not bolted down to the chassis, but it's all in one piece. So basically you have to shift things around just a little bit and get it in an arrangement that makes sense. We started cutting the insulation. It fits beautifully. We're going to go around the edges with expanding foam insulation, the spray can stuff, just because I think we're dealing in small enough quantities that it doesn't make sense to get the big commercial dispenser. But that'll give it an airtight seal, so it'll be a little more draft proof. This stuff is pretty expensive. We didn't really do research. Basically lack of planning. We really didn't research the most affordable, cost-effective option. I didn't think about the fact that yes, the walls will be open later, but the floor won't be. So we have to have the floor insulated before we proceed with framing the walls, because once the OSB goes down, the walls go on top of the OSB. It's not really flexible after that. So, oops, lesson learned. Hopefully you guys cannot make the same mistake. It's best to have insulation picked out, ordered when you start doing your floor bracing. Beyond that, there's some interesting little quirks that we're running into. We're going to screw in these little cross braces, about 6 of them on each side, just kind of evenly spaced, and then put 3/8" bolts down through these, through the steel. That'll secure it really well. On this end, we'll probably do a few more things. Up there, you've got the wheel wells making a natural wedge. So the front end really can't go anywhere. The back end, though, relies mostly on its connection to the front end, there and there, and the bolts that we put down through the steel. So we definitely want to make sure the back end's secure. So we've got all the insulation cut to fit, and one of the things we're doing right now, we're putting temporary blocks on to make sure that this whole frame is centered on the trailer itself. So they're on both sides. Because next step is basically we put in these little braces, and we're going to put 3/8" bolts straight down through the steel frame and lock everything together. I've already put some lag screws here and on each of the 4 posts here to try and pull everything forward and secure it that way. And there'll be there'll be further bolts going through that piece of steel, so not the end of the world. But after we get everything where we want it, I don't know if you can see all these little toenail screws. Not little, they're 4 inches. But what we'll do is basically screw every cross beam down to the decking underneath, and that'll give it more rigidity. It'll help it absorb vibration better. It'll give us less creaks in our floor, because right now, I can wiggle that back and forth and it'll vibrate like a tuning fork. You put a couple screws in there, it becomes extremely rigid, and that'll provide also support. That'll translate that support all the way out to the outside beams where the walls are, hopefully giving us a structure that's just more rigid in general, less squeaking and creaking and moving around. But got a ways to go. We didn't get as far yesterday as we had hoped, but we're making good progress this morning, and hopefully we'll be laying OSB within the hour. So, yeehaw.
Probably was going to do that first.
So we're wrapping up the very last of the expanding foam insulation, sealing all the seams, and we put down all the strips, made them a nice tight fit. These are 2-inch thick board, 2-inch thick foam board, which is maybe a little overkill, but that's alright. I'd rather have this thing sealed up like a drum. Anyways, we cut all the sheets, pressed them down into place, even in the tiniest of cracks, like that one, and went around every single edge with expanding foam insulation. And we even, on the outside, the exterior boards that are directly to the outside, we put an extra layer of foam all the way up flush with where the OSB will be, just to try and head off, you know, you can see it's thicker there than there, just to try and head off, you know, heat making its way into the floor cavity from the side. So, almost done. Next step, OSB, putting our floorboards down. This promises to be an adventure. Scene complete. We got all of the decking down, all the insulation, all of the treated lumber. From here, we start putting up wall braces. Very gratifying.